What is up, people? Jean Carlos here with the Total Body Training Podcast, where I help people get lean, gain muscle, and build confidence. And this is my friend Cory Torkelson. Go ahead and say, hey, Cory.
Hey guys, what's up?
Cory is a pretty incredible dude. He's a personal trainer, he's an athlete, and he is an ultramarathon runner, and he's an American Ninja Warrior. He's pretty much done a little bit of everything. And today we're going to talk about his training history, his life, and what's led up to him competing now in the American Ninja Warrior series that is going on currently right now, or that's about to come out. So before we go on, this episode is brought to you by carbs. Cory, what's your favorite carb?
Pizza.
Pizza? What do you have on your pizza?
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni?
Onions. Bell peppers.
Yeah. Where do you get it from?
Capos.
I haven't had Capos. Pretty good?
Yeah. Usually when I go Capos, I just get pepperoni.
Okay. That's it. All right, you heard it first. I'm going to put a link to Capos in the description section on here. A little shout out to them, all right? All right, Cory, so I'm glad to have you here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And today, we're just going to talk a little bit about you and your training history and your life. And, I just want to kind of go back to the start. So where did you begin your training history? When did you first start training?
When I was about 3-4 years old, my mom and dad put me in gymnastics, and my brother also was put in gymnastics. He's about 5 years older than me, and after a year or two, we ended up. My parents bought the gym, and we kind of just grew up in a gymnastics facility our whole life. So
yeah, that's pretty badass. So what were some of your favorite things to do in gymnastics at that time?
Well, I think my favorite was, my best event was vault, but my favorite was probably high bar.
High bar?
Yeah, I like swinging.
Yeah, it's a very intense sport. And so did you compete in that when you were younger, or is that something more so that you did?
Yeah, we did. So every weekend, is pretty much, 3-4 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then on I don't know, one weekend every 2 weeks or so, we'd be up in Houston or in Dallas and doing a gymnastics competition.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, especially at that age, it's not something that I can necessarily relate to because, I was just a chunky kid. I didn't compete in sports or do anything like that. So do you think that, like, at that time, were you driven by competition, or was it more so just like you were just excited to be there because your parents were taking you? What was that kind of like when you were younger?
I guess it never really felt like I was competing against anybody else. I always felt like I was competing just against myself, just to get through a routine, to get, to finish a set without falling off the bar or, bending your knees or take your legs coming apart or not pointing your toes. So it was always kind of you're focused on what you're doing, because if you're focused on what anybody else is doing, you're probably not going to do very well.
Yeah, and I would say that's mostly the case for like those sports, or even like Olympic weightlifting or like other sports like that. It's like you're alone, while you're performing, right? Because you're typically like all eyes are on you when you're performing in those events, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you're just kind of going at it on your own. And there's definitely people counting on you and things like that, but you're kind of on your own. You're not directly facing your competitor. So I can see why that would be the case. Now, like, from what I remember, a little bit later on in your life, you moved into doing wrestling, correct?
Yeah.
At what age did you get into wrestling?
I was about 14 years old. Yeah, I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah. And what made you want to go into wrestling?
My dad was a wrestler in high school, and he's from Minnesota, so it's wrestling country up there. And so he kind of pushed me that direction, and my freshman year was the first year that it was UIL in Texas. So they had been wrestling for years before that, but it was the first official year of UIL wrestling. So
So were you influenced a lot by your dad in terms of like what you were doing with your training and things like that? I mean, with him owning a gym, did he kind of guide that process?
My mom was more of the kind of the director of my sports and whatnot. My dad was a big influence for the reason why I chose wrestling, but he was. I mean, he's always been. He's a great provider, so he's always been at work, busting butt. But he would come watch all my wrestling meets, and he owned the gym. But at that time, it was around Desert Storm, and he's a pilot in the Air Force. So
I didn't know.
So he was real. He's always back and forth overseas, and and right now he's 7 years old, and he just got a job flying. He's a fire bomber now, so putting out fires out on the West Coast, and
he's currently doing this.
Yeah, so he's out now. He's out 3 weeks, back a week, out 3 weeks, back a week. So,
yeah, I understand. Yeah, that kind of life. I think it must be really intense, and then it must be exciting when you get to see dad and you get to like kind of cherish those moments.
Oh, absolutely.
So, that being said, who were some of the first people that instilled an interest in fitness? Like, are there any coaches that stand out to you from your upbringing that really taught you some valuable lessons?
Absolutely. My coach, Ed Cosner, strength coach in high school, my first personal trainer, taught me how to Olympic lift, taught me how to snatch, clean, taught me the importance of glute ham raises. And as much as I hated them, it was, we did them all kind of different ways. So now he was and I just saw him yesterday at the Highland Games. He's the director of the Highland Games here in San Antonio. So I went out and saw him just yesterday. But
the Highland Games are the Celtic, right? The Celtic Games. And so what did they do? I know they do like a lot of stone throwing
the
and
caber,
kilts.
the stones. I don't know much about the sport, to be honest, except for when you look at it, it looks like they're doing, really explosive, like power clean, it looks a lot like an Olympic lift. Yeah. Like a snatch when they're throwing the weight over the bar. So I can see the application from what he taught me to that sport, but I don't know much about it. I was a thrower in college, but I just threw the javelin.
Yeah. It's almost like when I see the sports that Highland Games people do, it reminds me of like a cross between like Olympic weightlifting, strongman training, like somewhere like this weird kind of hybrid of all those things. It's really neat. And so typically like the people just go off topic for a second, but they wear kilts. It's a really traditional kind of event, so people are super into it. So you actually ran into that guy when you were there, that coach of yours? Yeah.
I knew he was going to be in town as he's the director, so I went over and of course, there was like 3 or 4 guys that I, trained with growing up that were there too. So got to see my whole a small portion of the old Olympic crew from back in my heyday.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you get into wrestling, and did that change things for you at that moment?
Yeah, I excelled. I did really well. It was me. I was in the spotlight again, I guess. So I can see how you were kind of trying to draw these two things together: the being a gymnast and having performing in front of everybody. It's really similar as a wrestler, because you're kind of you're wrestling as a team, but you're just out there on the mat with going against the other guy. So it feels really good to beat somebody one-on-one, and so that was it gave me a lot of confidence, and then I learned when I got to college that I wasn't much. So
okay, so like when you got to college, because we're not necessarily known for our wrestling here, and so the schools and the people that you're competing in, the division that we're competing in here in San Antonio and Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, like this whole area are a different caliber, because we just don't have the training history as like other states might have.
I'm sure it's a lot different now. A lot different now, but still, they've got 20, 30 years on us, but since I graduated college, I've seen a lot of MMA studios and just mixed martial arts, a lot of wrestling, and I'm sure the sport has developed here in Texas. But from Texas to Oklahoma, they're great wrestlers in Oklahoma, but I could handle myself. But going to Iowa, it was like a whole nother ball game. It wasn't, you're wrestling a different style, and it's not a fun style to wrestle.
Yeah. So you started to like lose taste for it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got beat up so bad, but I hung in there for the year and made sure, finished what I started, and then I kind of moved on from that. I'm really, super happy to be able to jump on the track team and do that and really perform well there. But
yeah, so you transitioned into track, and I think you transitioned into pole vaulting.
Yep.
Yeah, and so did you excel better in those sports when you moved back over into that?
Yeah. Well, I had pole vaulted here in Texas as a high school, middle school, and a high school athlete, and so going up to Iowa and pole vaulting there, I actually did pretty well, since that's an area of the athletic spectrum that they don't have any pole vaulting.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like you had that benefit of like there being like fewer fish in the pond, so that you could excel at
I went
that.
from an awesome track. I mean, Texas has got to be one of the best track and field sport states in the country. So outside of California, but yeah. So coming from one of the best track states to one that maybe isn't super awesome up in Iowa. It's probably not the best track and field, and being able to excel there, it was kind of nice to be able to do that because I got my butt kicked wrestling. So it's nice to be able to see and understand why I performed so well in Iowa as a track athlete, and why I got my butt kicked as a wrestler. And it really, it's a weird. It's a hard thing to explain. Not pole vaulting. In college, I wasn't even pole vaulting as high as some of the kids were pole vaulting in high school.
Yeah.
They were out jumping me in high school. So I'm able to do well, but I still know that I'm not jumping as high as some of the Texas high school kids are.
Yeah, I understand. So that must come with like a level of like maybe like I think to recognize that, I should say, takes a level of introspection that like some athletes aren't willing to do, or some people in life. I mean, to like look at yourself and be like, I'm pretty good, but I could be better. Yeah, and like recognizing that is a very humbling thing. I can imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly where. I'm
especially if you're like getting beaten up. I mean, wrestling, especially like with wrestling, I mean, there just seems to be something that's so brutal about having a contact sport, having a man on top of you, sweating on top of you, holding you down, making you tap out, like all these things. I mean, it's a very psychological game that you're having to play, and it's very exhausting. Even just watching people, I get tired when I watch something like MMA or any kind of mixed martial arts. So I have a great admiration for people who, at the very least, like dedicate some time to that. So it's really awesome that you kind of got to learn these skills and like kind of have that introspection, that thought about yourself and how you fit in the greater scheme of fitness and physical activity, exercise and whatnot. So from there you kind of moved on, after college. What was in college? You were majoring in what?
Exercise physiology.
Okay, and where did you go after college? What did you do at that point?
Well, I took my exam for my CSCS, and I got certified. With
CS, can you tell what our viewers at home what that is?
It's with the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's typically, and I thought I was going to be working with a lot of athletes, so it's typically what a strength coach in maybe a college arena would have, but I feel like it's one of the gold standard certifications, and it was they were a really tough test, and so I'm glad I took it right after college when I had all that knowledge still there. I wouldn't want to take it today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those tests are really detailed, and there's so much you have to go over. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of like anatomy, right?
Yeah, and but we do a lot of continuing education, and so I just have to stay on top of that, because if I had to take the test again, I think it'd be tough. I would have to put a lot of, I haven't been in college in 10 years, so. But really, all that stuff, learning all that stuff, I think, and getting the certification is more important than the certification itself. I think, a lot of the sciencey stuff, it's important, but there's a lot of stuff that's more important than the science, and I think.
We'd agree.
I think it's like, oh, cool, you got a great cert, but. I know guys who don't have any certification that are amazing coaches and teachers. So.
Yes. I would definitely agree with that. I think that sometimes people anticipate or think that because someone has a piece of paper that they are automatically going to have the knowledge that it takes to train people in a good way. And so much of training, and maybe you'd agree with me or you could speak to that, so much of like training and like teaching people how to improve is more than just, what you were taught in that book. Like you might be taught like, certain things about like where your muscles are and things like that, but like how that translates to actually being a good coach is besides me. It's would you say, how do you become a good trainer? Because I know that you are one. I'd
say that you would have to learn that people don't really care about all that sciencey stuff. They want you to help them achieve a certain, so finding out what people want and then helping them get there,
Yes.
And not trying to overcomplicate it with fancy words and, textbook stuff. But, when I came out of school, I think I had a big head. Like I've got, that degree, and, why aren't these people listening to me? Well, they don't really care about how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to just, really just try to love, serve, and care, and just try to be, really, really, in their corner, because it's not 1 hour, 3 days a week or 5 days a week. It's, you got to help motivate them for 24 hours every single day. So I don't even know. You've probably done the math.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's a lot of hours to.
Yep.
And a few hours a week working out is really, it's nothing. So.
Yeah, it's all about the person and what they need and how to deliver the information to them in the best way possible and give them what they actually want. And I 100% am on your side. There's to me one of the biggest flaws that people can have as educators, or and maybe I'm about to sound a little bit negative. I don't want to speak hate to anyone or any training methodology or point anybody out, but I think that sometimes people shove things down people's throats when they're training people, and they just anticipate things or expect things, and they come from a really high-minded place, especially after college or something, where you've been educated and you know all the right words and the fancy things that your college professors know. But when you tell that to your average person, they're like, what? I just want to.
The eyes just glaze over.
Yeah. Yeah. They could care less.
And you can't explain it to them any better than the book explained it to you. Like you could talk about it like out of a book, but you can't just talk to them about it how you should talk to them about it so they could care, listen to you. So it took a long time, to develop that, and I'm still working on it.
Of course. So after college, what did you do next? What was your next step?
Well, right after college, I started working at HealthLink for the Baptist Health System. Mm-hmm. Over on Bitters and 281, they have a physical therapy clinic, and there's a fitness side. And I was working on the fitness side, doing, post-physical therapy with, somebody who maybe came out of a rotator cuff surgery, just did their therapy with the physical therapist, and then they send them over to our side. But that and then working with Silver Sneakers and a lot of seniors, really.
So you developed, and I know this because I've seen lots of pictures on your Instagram and your Facebook. You developed friendships with some of the people who were a little bit older, right? Could you mention, you have one friend in particular who was really special to you? Can you mention him real quick?
Yeah, Jim Brown. And his name was James Brown. So I called him the original father of soul. He was 103 when he passed, so he was born in 1914.
Oh my God, yeah. And you and the father of soul developed a really strong relationship, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to mention just briefly a little bit about that?
Yeah, when we first started working together, he had gotten a referral from his girlfriend's cardiologist, and she had. Basically, the girlfriend calls me and says she has her boyfriend Jim has got a hamstring injury, and he needs to do some kind of physical exercise to get his hamstring back in shape. So started working with him 3 days a week, and then we moved to 5 days a week, and then ultimately it was 6 days a week, and just an hour a day, but I would eat lunch with them, maybe an hour and a half, just because it felt like, I wanted to stay there all day. But yeah, it was I would have gone there even if he didn't pay me. At a point when we were together, it would have been if he wasn't able to pay me or something, I would have just kept coming. And I learned a lot more from him than he learned from me. But
what's the most valuable lesson you learned from Jim?
I think giving people credit for doing a good job.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, just giving people the credit that they deserve, and maybe even trying to find whoever's in charge of their moving up, and give the credit directly to that person, so you can help move somebody up the ladder, and whatever their goals are. But yeah, he just made it pretty clear that the reason why he had so much success was because he pointed out the success of other people.
Yes.
To the right people.
Yes. What was his career again?
He was the vice president of Scott Paper.
Yeah, and so what we're kind of talking about here is gratitude, showing that when you have an employee or someone like that, they need to feel like you've been grateful for them, and they need to hear that, and it improves there's so much information that suggests that when you show gratitude and you give that to whether it's your employees or your athletes or your clients, whatever, that you show that you care, when you show that you're thankful, it just helps the relationship between you two, between all of you and everybody who works within that organization. So it's really just like an incredibly valuable skill to have. Where did you go? So at this time, how were you training? What were you doing in terms of like working out and exercising? Because I know like now you weren't in high school anymore. You weren't in college, so you weren't pole vaulting.
Yeah, so I didn't have.
Where do you go pole vault?
I didn't have any sports, so no competition to help drive any kind of. My physical, my addiction really to training. So it became more about just the mirror, and I just wanted to build more muscle. And I think a lot of people get that way, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a really great way to drive your success. But for me, I think it was an unhealthy thing for me, because I think I never really noticed myself in the mirror before, and couldn't appreciate really being in amazing shape my whole life. And so now I want to be this freak, super strong meathead, and I just kind of got lost in that.
Yeah, and it's very easy to do that. I mean, to get caught up in the culture of like beauty that surrounds bodybuilding. We're not saying there's anything like shameful about doing that. I think bodybuilding's badass. I love it.
Yeah. But for me, it was an unhealthy thing. I don't think it is unhealthy for everybody.
No.
But it's how you want to live your life, and that's it wasn't ultimately going to take me to where I wanted to be. But it was a really important phase for me to go through, and I think an important phase for everybody to go through, and know that and understand that there's probably going to be a time that things will change. And having a plan, you know, when that time comes is a better way to go than just kind of waiting for it to happen.
What do you mean by having, like, things are going to change?
Well, you're gonna get older. Maybe you might get married. You might have you might get a family, and dedicating all this time to the gym could destroy a marriage. It could destroy your family when the goal is to get bigger. Ooh, you know, and I'm already really big. I'm oversized right now.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on stage because I feel like I've got to have 20 more pounds.
Yeah.
So I always needed to have 20 more pounds, and I'll get on stage when that happens. And so.
So did you ever compete?
No. I mean,
'cause
I was getting very close, but no, I was way too self-conscious, and I looked at the guys and I thought, well, I need at least 20 more pounds.
Yeah.
I don't know why 20 was the number, but it was always. I need 20 more.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of like mental stuff that can happen to you where you become self-defeating, and I think like I mean, you know, it sucks because, you know, at that point it almost can become like a body image issue, like for yourself, and then you spend all this time doubting yourself and maybe like looking at like other men in magazines and wishing that you look that way.
And just not being able to appreciate what you have. I mean, that you're in great shape. And everybody else has been telling you this for a long time, and you're just like, you know, you can't hear it. Earmuffs are on or something. But my entire life. And so I think that probably drove me to want to enhance my image even more, but it wasn't changing anything for me. Socially, I wasn't, you know, I think I interact a lot better socially now, that I'm not, you know, super worried about how I look and how much muscle I have. How, you know, I've got a pump right now. I don't really. So
no, and yeah, I can see how that would be detrimental. I mean, in terms of like, you know, will you be able to always have that pump if you have other priorities in your life, like having a family or things like that? You know, for some people, yes. I mean, for some people, like that outweighs, you know, having other priorities in their life. But for you, you know, being a family man and like, you know, things like that, or like even just having a different outlook on fitness, which we'll get to in a few minutes, you know, there are other things that you value more. And that's something that I think that we really share in common. And we'll get to that in a few seconds. So during this time that you're bodybuilding, you were in an accident. And that accident ultimately changed the course of your training career and the course of your entire life. Can you start off by sharing what happened in the car accident?
Yeah. So it was on December 27th of 2008, and my brother was in town. He was in town from the Air Force Academy. He was the gymnastics coach there, and he was in town. We were leaving my parents' house, going over to my house. I think maybe we were going to play video games or something. I can't remember. And I lost control of my vehicle, hit a tree, and my brother was killed. He died on the scene, and I was airlifted to University Hospital. And they induced a coma. I was in a coma for 3 days, and I broke my neck. I broke 12 ribs. I collapsed my left lung. But the worst part of the whole thing was my head injury. So I had I think it was 10 dime-sized bleeds on my frontal lobe, a lot of swelling, and so really. The brain injury was a lot worse than any of the breaks. But, you know, all of that being said, I had to, you know, learn how to walk again. I wasn't paralyzed, but I wasn't walking straight. And I had to learn, you know, how to drive again. That was something I didn't get my license back for a long time. Because I don't want somebody, you imagine hitting your head or something really, really hard and then, you know, trying to, you know, walk away from it. I've had a lot of concussions. And And so it's like you've got your head hit, but it's just you can't quite get your balance back,
Yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy, and in my mind, I can do anything, but my mind isn't. They're not giving me. I can't. I'm not able to make decisions for myself anymore. That's how bad the head injury was. So they kind of, you lose some of your rights, when you have an injury like that.
And by that you mean that other people in your life had to make decisions for you?
I mean, I couldn't drive a car.
Yeah.
It was like you can't drive. You got to come and pass a driver's test. You can't. The doctor isn't even going to let you go take that test. So you're not going to have the capability, and just having to wait all that time. And it was, gosh, I can't remember how long it was till I got my license back. I can't remember how long it was until I was out of the therapy unit, walking around, and it was outpatient. So I'd go there, after I got out, I would go to my outpatient therapy, and I would walk around in there for 3 or 4 hours, going from one class to another, speech therapy to a head injury group of guys who've all been in pretty bad accidents, or a lot of oil rigger accidents, people getting hit with pipes. But
as somebody, I had a head trauma as well, but not to the level you had. Mine was pretty mild in comparison to yours. So, the way that I can relate to it, in the very least, is that you don't know as a person how valuable your body and your health is until you have something really bad happen to you, where you can't use your body the same way. And, I imagine that had to have been really tough for you emotionally, as well as on your family. And then also, the fact that your brother did pass away. Was a lot of that kind of weighing on you at the same time as you were trying to, figure out your own health, or, was that even really on the top of your mind, considering how bad of shape you were in?
Yeah, I was, my head injury was so bad that, immediately hearing that I lost my brother in the accident, and this was a long time, they kept it from me for a while, I couldn't remember what I'd been told, 5 minutes later.
Yes, I understand.
So the brain injury really protected me from having to, hear that. That would have killed me if I didn't have the head injury. That would have ruined my life. So the head injury saved my life, but it also allowed me to know that, this great, physical body, that I was always more into sports and everything else than I was into school. Yeah, I went to school to play sports. I'm glad that I had the sports to get me through college, because otherwise I don't know if I would have, stuck it out that long. But I was always into performance, my body, not necessarily my mind. I had to pull things together to get the answers,
yes,
to get out of school. But so then getting my control unit, damaging that, then it was a complete reversal of, now I'm training to enhance my mind instead of my body. And so I started running after
okay. And then you slowly got introduced to running, which took your life in a different career path. And so now, I know that I've been following you for a while, and we're friends. You've been able to do marathons and ultramarathons. Recently you qualified for Boston, right?
Yeah.
What was your time? You did this at the Rock and Roll Marathon?
I ran San Antonio Rock and Roll. I ran a 3:01:28.
Oh my God.
And at one point I thought, oh man, I'm going to get under 3, and I remember somebody says, you're number 9. I thought, oh man,
you were 9th place?
So he says, you're in 9th place. And I was like, and so I was able I think I was able to hang into that 9th place spot the whole time. And I wasn't able to get the guy in front of me, but I didn't get caught. And but I remember coming through the finish line puking, though.
Oh shit.
Well, Yeah, I did puke because it's funny because I usually dry heave.
Yeah.
When I come down, it's just a mental thing. I think I just start to, feel like I'm going to throw up, and so it's a lot of, making noise, and I look really foolish. But I can't help it sometimes. This time I actually threw up, and the photographer got the shot of me throwing up. I wanted that so bad, but I think they edited it out.
Oh, it sucks.
I think they edited the vomit out because they didn't want people seeing it, when they're looking through pictures. But I wanted that.
There's
so
a lot
bad.
of ugly shit that happens when you're running that people don't like to address, but that's definitely one of them. It just kind of comes with it, folks. You might throw up when you run a 3 hour marathon. So like, when are you going to perform are you going to run Boston?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna run in 2019, so April.
Yeah.
So it's a ways off. I'm gonna probably try to do some more ultras. Actually, this year I want to PR in my 5K, my 10K. I was gonna do PR in my 15. Every race, but I want to do my 5K and 10K PR, my half marathon and my marathon PR. But I want to try to get at least 100 mile or maybe 200 milers in.
So, can I take a step back here? So you go into the run, how much of this was, because this is a completely different kind of like trajectory that you went in, because at this point you were like bodybuilding.
I talk so much mess about runners. I said, oh, you want to look like one of those skinny guys?
Yeah, there's so much
my
shit.
goodness.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same problem because when I started running, and now I've gained weight since, but when I was a runner, not like you, but just like a marathon runner, an average Joe marathon runner, I got down to like 165, and I looked very skinny, and I got so much shit from bodybuilders. Like even like trainers that I worked with, because I was a trainer at the time, they'd be like, oh, you're gonna lose your gains, man. So like, you were one of those people who kind of like made fun of it like at the time. So like, what then made you want to do that?
Well, I figured I couldn't just run a marathon, by just a marathon. So I had read Born to Run, and I had that. I was one of those crazy barefooters, and back from the old day, I was one of the guys that started the trend, I think, right after the book. I think I probably was on the early bandwagon, maybe. But there were people, probably 10, 20 years before me that would say, you just like, you came way late into the game, because we've always known that barefoot running is a good way to improve your running mechanics. And it was a trend, but it's always been something we've used to train, not necessarily run races, but we've always used barefoot running, to improve our mechanics. And I think there's just a lot of coaches that haven't used that, but there's plenty of coaches that have been using it for, since the beginning of time.
Yeah. And so like it sounds like you needed something new, some kind of new challenge.
Yeah, I needed to do something bigger than a marathon. So I ran the marathon barefoot, and after I ran the marathon barefoot, I thought, well, maybe I want to do something bigger. So I ran a 50K, and I did that in 5 fingers. So, and I wasn't really too pumped about. I felt kind of ashamed of having to wear shoes, even if it's just the 5-finger shoes. I still felt it was kind of like, now I wish I could have gone back and maybe did it in sandals, but I always thought those guys looked stupid. But then now looking back, I think, oh man, I look really dumb in those 5-finger shoes. It looks so dumb.
Yeah, they were such a trend.
Yeah,
I mean,
I looked so dumb, but I didn't care. I was running 50K, then I run 100 kilometers, and I did that in 5 fingers. And then I was like, well, shoot, if I ran this crazy race in Bandera that's, crazy rocks, I mean, just the terrain is some of the, I'd say it's probably one of the hardest races that I've ever run. Still Bandera, to this day, is Bandera 100K.
Did you run that barefoot?
I ran it in 5 fingers. I believe I might be the only person who's ever done it in 5 fingers.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever done it in sandals.
And from what I understand, you had multiple attempts to hit an ultramarathon, and then eventually you got one.
Well, so 50K is an ultramarathon.
Okay.
So I got that, and then 100K is a big ultramarathon. You get a belt a lot of the times, a belt buckle. So I got my belt buckle. So I was real proud about that. But then the next thing was 100 miles. And I think that's where you really feel like you've done it, maybe as an ultra marathon runner. And then you start thinking about 200-mile races. But I think when you really feel like you're in that group is once you've finished 100 miles.
And so, like, you know, at this time, you know, what has all of this, because you're a person who's had to face adversity, you've grown a lot, you know, from the experiences that you had with your brother, you've grown a lot from the injury that you had. It's almost like it opened up this new side of you that you didn't know you had. What is the biggest thing you learned about yourself doing these ultra marathons?
I learned that I wasn't a humble athlete coming up as a youngster through college, after school. I still hadn't, I wasn't humbled. And I thought, you know, I thought I was a lot, you know, I thought I was big shit. And I don't think I really realized it until after I had this car accident, and I realized that, wow, you aren't shit, you know, anything can take you out real quick.
Yeah.
And then having to work on my mind and on my memory, and just being able to understand what I'm reading and keep that, you know, for enough time to really just to be able to trick people, you know, so they you know, you can have a conversation and you're not like you know, you don't sound like you're a brain injured person.
Yeah.
And so I still think I get into that sometimes, but for the most part, I think I can hold a pretty good thought. And I think a lot of that, being able to hold a thought and be able to communicate something, is because of my running. Is because of you know, the changes that it makes in your brain, as far as just the chemicals that you get pumping, like your serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, all the stuff that you get up, you know, in the right doses when you take medication. Well, sometimes they get it in the right doses, or sometimes they get it in the wrong doses. But when you exercise, it's like the perfect medicine.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much.
There's no guessing. There's no like, oh, let's try this or let's try this. It's like, you get all the stuff that you need, and the more I would exercise, the more I would run. You know, 15-mile run in the morning, 20-mile run in the morning, I would have the most amazing day. Just starting with something really big, and I wouldn't run it very fast. You know, I'd set aside 2 to 4 hours just to go on a little jaunt. I'd be barefoot, so I'm not running fast. My feet are, you know, that'd kill me.
Yeah.
You know, but to run super fast for that far, yeah, that'd be hard. But I was barefoot, so I couldn't go very fast. I think the barefoot running slowed me down. So if I was doing something wrong, I'm not going to get hurt. You know, you might step on a rock or something, but you're not going to destroy your knees or your back because you're, you know, running faster than you should be running, you know, heel striking, just terrible.
Yeah. And so like what you're telling me is that you learn like this level of humility, and that, you know, it's almost like that opened up the accident, and learning this level of humility opened you up to new challenges in your life, like the barefoot running and the running, and constantly challenging yourself, trying to push yourself so that you can grow as a person, and also get free medication from working out and running, the dopamine, the serotonin, and all those things that people tend to undervalue that you do get when you work out.
Yeah. Everything is a mental challenge before it's a physical challenge.
Yes.
You have to decide you're going to run 100 miles before you start the line.
Yes,
you know, you have to decide first you can do it. You have to sign up. So it's all a mental challenge first. And if it's going to the gym, you still have to open the door and walk out of the door, get in your car. Once you get in the car, I promise you're not going to turn around and go get back in your bed.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the first, you know, taking those first steps, whether it's 100 miles or it's like, I'm going to go to the gym today. It's always a mental obstacle before
100%.
It's a physical obstacle.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like it's all about like taking those little steps and then just like committing and just being okay for the ride. And so From here, you started to develop an interest in American Ninja Warrior and obstacle course stuff. So, from what I understand, you tried out for American Ninja Warrior about a year or two ago.
I did.
Here in the San Antonio one.
It was in
right?
San Antonio, season 9, and I went and got in the walk-on line. I was 28th in the line, and so now after having kind of learned a little bit, I think I probably have to be at least 10th spot in the line to really know you're going to run. 28 was pretty far back, but at the time I thought I'm gonna have this chance to run. But it started raining. They didn't get too many walk-ons.
So you didn't even get to do it?
No.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happened from there?
Well, I learned everything I needed to. I needed to get on the show. The first obstacle with American Ninja Warrior isn't the quad steps or the quintuple steps it's getting on the show. So it's making a submission video that the producers like enough to cast you for the show. So you have to have it helps to have a story. It helps to be athletic. You have to be able to complete the course. So the stuff that you're showing them has to demonstrate that you're capable of finishing the course, because they don't want just anybody out there. They want to have competitors. So I think anybody who gets on the show, I'd say almost any of them, if not all of them, could finish the course. It's just, can you do it on your first try? Can you get those 6 obstacles on that first night? Can you get those on your first try? All of them could do it. If you get 1 or 2 tries at it, you could learn each obstacle and you could run the course. But yeah, it was everything I expected it to be. I'm super happy to have been able to. I mean, I had so much fun. Participating,
and right now you're talking
with
about
these
like
guys.
your Dallas, the experience you had in Dallas recently, and where can we watch that? That's coming up. That's going to be on TV soon. What station?
So we found out in Dallas, or when we were there competing, they told us that LA wasn't going to be the premiere. They surprised us that Dallas would be the premiere episode of season 10, and we're going to have a viewing party at my church, MacArthur Park Lutheran on Nacogdoches.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. So that's going to be, do you know what date that is?
It'll be May 30th. I'm not sure what time it's going to air. I think 7 or 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'll have people meeting up there 30 minutes before the air time, but I'm just not 100% sure. That's quite a ways off.
Yeah, so if any of you know Cory or are interested in, being at this premiere, come on out. To which church is it again?
MacArthur Park Lutheran.
MacArthur Park Lutheran. We're going to be there watching him, rooting for him. From what I understand, we're going to show your video, your tryout video for it, where you kind of tell the story of your brother and what it led up to where you're at right now with your life. I mean, this is really, really just exciting, and I can't wait to see what happens with you on the American Ninja Warrior. So, Cory, one last question. I know that you have, family. How has your family been with you going into the American Ninja Warrior? I know Claudia, I've seen, and your kids were there. How was that, having them there and watch you and things like that?
It was absolutely amazing to see how much they love you, to be doing something so stressful. For them to come and stay up all night long, trying to keep you're just you're back there, thinking about, is your family comfortable? Your friends, you got 15 people there to see you, and you're not sure if they're out in the parking lot waiting to come in to see your run, and you're just waiting for hours and hours and hours. You don't know when your run's coming. So it was really stressful. It was, but once you get out there, it's cameras are rolling. They get you pumped up, and it's really exciting. So. It's amazing how it all works out, but it's going to be a lot different in my next season and the seasons after that. I can see that just from this last experience, that and the year before, these 2 experiences, I know a whole lot more now.
Yeah.
So I know exactly exactly what I need to do
To prepare.
moving forward.
Yeah, man. Well, I am really excited for you, and I cannot wait for the premiere of the show. Cory, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up in just 1 second. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to do a part 2 with you if you'd be down after the show airs.
I would love
so we can
to.
talk about that. Awesome. We're going to do a few rapid fire questions, all right?
All right.
So, sumo or conventional deadlift?
Conventional.
Conventional. All right. How do you like your coffee?
Black, 1 cream, fair amount of sugar.
Okay. Do you have any hobbies that we don't know about? Anything you like to do? Maybe it's something you like to watch, read, something you like to do that we just don't know about because we always hear about the fitness version of you.
I juggle. I like the handstand. I'm trying to master my 1-arm handstand.
Yeah. Me too.
So, no, I mean, it's really like, it's this dream of being able to, I know I can show that I've mastered the handstand when I can do it on one hand. So I'm not there yet, but I'm getting that a little bit.
Yeah.
A little closer.
That's badass, man. Yeah, I know I always seen you doing those movements. Favorite restaurant to go on a dinner date with your wife? Or a place that you and her like to go to?
Let's see.
It doesn't have to be fancy. It can be anything.
Dinner
It can be
date.
like Burger King. It can be a lunch date.
Okay, Mama's. That's like Mama's Cafe that's our go-to.
That's up the street, right?
Yeah, it's on Nacogdoches.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we like Thai food too. So, but
Where do you go for Thai?
it's it's been a while. It's been a long time since we've been. But there's a place called where is it?
Is it Thai D?
No, I haven't done Thai D yet.
Oh, you got to do Thai D. Yeah.
Bangkok 54,
right? Yes.
That's one of the spots, but I'm trying to remember the name of the other one, and it's been so long. I hit my head too hard.
Dude, I would forget that. I don't remember every restaurant in town. You're always too hard.
I know
on
where it
yourself
is. I
about
can
that.
get there if I've got GPS.
I got you. Like, don't we all, man?
Yeah.
All right. So, Cory, thank you so much for being here today. Where can people find you online?
Online, you can find me on my Instagram at Son of Torque. You can, get to know me on there, get to know me outside of there, and then my wife and I might add you on our Facebook.
Yeah.
That's it's her decision, though, who gets on the Facebook page. So I leave that up to her. But a lot of our clients and friends and people that we've networked with are on our Facebook also. But Instagram, Google me, Google my name. But
well, it sounds like those are all the places. For me, over here, you can find me at Total Body Training Instagram, on Instagram at Total Body Training. And you can find me on the Total Body Training Facebook. Look for the 2 T's. I've got an upside down T and a regular T, as well as on Anchor and all the major podcasting sites. Not every single major podcasting site, but most of them. I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you find me on there, you just Google Total Body Training Podcast. You can find me on there, as well as YouTube and Facebook. All right, people, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. Until next time, peace.